Hello, all you positive heads out there. It's so good to be back with all you beautiful reflections of the one source consciousness that creates and animates all things. If you're new to this podcast, of course, we're super happy to have you here. And if you've been listening and enjoying for a while, I would be super grateful if you would please take a moment to give us a review on Apple Podcasts. It's one of the best and simplest ways to pay it forward and help others find the show so that they too can tap into the powerful perspectives and positive vibrations we are collectively emanating. The other unique and magical way to share this show is by sending any friends you think would benefit from listening to this podcast our Game with the Universe link at positivehead.com/game. Also listed in the show notes, which will serve them up a quote unquote random episode when they click it. Just instruct them before clicking the link to close their eyes for a moment and sincerely ask the universe to cue up the episode that contains the insight and perspectives that they most need to hear at this point in their life journey, and then click to listen to whatever episode is synchronistically served up to them. I have heard time and time again from people about the incredible results they received playing the game. So just tell your friends magical results are guaranteed or their karma back.
All right, all you positive heads, welcome, one and all. I appreciate you so much for joining me on this magical today. Today, I'm going to get into some of the ways that we can love ourselves. This is a hard one to get down, and I think that this is just a lifelong journey for most of us. And oftentimes, the beginning of this journey feels like, I do love myself. I don't know what you mean. And that's the hardest part because we can't see all of the things that we need to work on. We can't see all of the ways that we're not loving ourselves. And we're allowing ourselves to be taken advantage of, overworked, burdened, whatever it may be. And then we have all these other associated feelings that come with it, all because we're not loving ourselves. And I don't think that I have ever met a human being who I could say fully, wholly, and completely loves themselves. Not that we don't exist, not that there's not a human out there who hasn't learned this yet. I don't know them. I don't know if you do. Lucky for you if you do. But this is something that we're here learning. And I don't think that we would be here if we weren't still learning this lesson or even refining this lesson. Maybe we've learned it before and had a good achievement there, but maybe we could do a little bit better. So we've come back to refine it even more. And I think right now, with all of our astrological alignments, we are being forced to look at our shadows. And that means if we're going to ignore the shadows that we're being forced to look at, things might get a little difficult. And the way that they'll get a little difficult is that we dig our feet in, we dig our heels in, and we get more stubborn in our patterns. And these patterns aren't serving us. We think they are. They're not. And all of it, every single one of these things that we do, all comes down to our root chakra, our base root chakra ideas of survival. Because as human beings, we need the acceptance of others in order to survive, or at least that's written in our programming, deep within our DNA. It has been this way for eons, that if we didn't have a tribe to be with and to take care of each other, if we were ostracized and alone out there, we would not survive. And so in our modern society, we still have this remembrance, and it makes us do all of these crazy things that are in opposition to us loving ourselves because we want the acceptance from others. We feel like that if we don't do these certain things or act in certain ways, then we won't have this acceptance and we'll be ostracized and we won't survive. And really, the reality is that the opposite is true now. And we are all here breaking all of this ancestral programming. All of us working out through our triggers, our traumas, our shadows, we are breaking all of this programming and generations of trauma. It's such a beautiful thing when we look at it that way. And so when we can remember that there's little things that we're doing that aren't loving ourselves, there's 7 things that I made a list of today in ways that we can love ourselves more. One of the very first ways is saying no. This power of saying no is humongous because it's placing boundaries. It's saying, this is what is acceptable to me. This is what I can handle. This is what's okay in my world. And this is what's not. And if it's not, then that's where the no comes in. And it is okay to say no. We are not going to be ostracized or not accepted or thrown to the side because we said no. It might feel that way, but when we can say no and stand in this power of our own selves, other people respect that. And then what happens is we actually teach them to do the same because we don't learn by people telling us what to do. We learn by example. So if we were all showing this beautiful example of saying no when our heart's not in it, when our heart's like, I don't think so. If we can say no, then it allows people the permission. It's like a permission slip for others to do the same. So standing in that power of no, setting that strong boundary, and that boundary is, what does my heart feel? My 5-year-old son drew a really great diagram about this unknowingly. But what he did was he's learning, the green is go and red is stop and green is yes and red is no. And so he was drawing a green check mark and a red X. Above the green check mark is a happy face. And above the red X is a sad face. Now look, 5-year-olds know. If it feels sad, if it feels like, then the answer is no. It is literally that simple. As adults, we overcomplicate all of it. But a 5-year-old knows, nope, my heart says no, and I'm going to say no. And you know what? They'll say it pretty loud too if you don't listen. So that's our inner child screaming when we are saying yes to something that we really want to say no to. That's inside of us. That's just screaming inside of us, and we push it. We push it down. And these are the things that create the blockages and ultimately cause symptoms in our body and disease if we continue to push them down and not listen to ourselves and listen to our heart. Another thing that we absolutely positively need to do, and those of us, and I know many of you listening to this podcast are this way, you're helpers. You came to this world to help, to break this generational trauma like I've been talking about. But the thing is, as humans, we get this so incredibly twisted. This does not mean that we carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. It does not mean that we do everything for everyone. And it certainly does not mean that it is okay for us to do it and to not ask for help. So it's incredibly important, especially for us helpers out there, to ask for help. Because if you're the one doing everything all the time, and that's what people expect of you because they think you like it, and of course you do, and it can become overwhelming when this is the expectation. And what would happen if you said no and you didn't show up in this way like you always do and disappointed everyone? You know what would happen? They would step up and do it because it needs to be done. And you can sit back and take a break because it is not on your shoulders all the time. This is a tribal effort. And the more we understand that everybody plays their part, and if we're not allowing everyone to play their part, say, for example, we have another helper in our lives and we are refusing to ask for help. And this helper can't help us unless we ask for help. And so now there's 2 jobs not being done. So you see, it doesn't help either party when we are not listening to our heart and doing the things that we need to do to keep ourselves whole and balanced. There's no way we're whole and balanced when we are carrying the weight of the world on our shoulders. So, asking for help. This is really hard for some, but this is incredibly important. And the more you can be okay with saying, I need some help here, I can't do it all on my own, the easier it gets. And actually, the more people are willing to step up and help you. Because how can they know you need help if you don't say so? They will just assume you got it because you always do. And then you go home and just get all that no one's helping. Well, it's because you set that up for yourself. And why? Why? Why did you do that for yourself? What were you trying to learn? You're trying to learn to love yourself. This is such a beautiful experience here, isn't it? When we can see it that clearly, that all of these experiences in our life are set up for us so that we can learn to love ourselves more, to understand ourselves, to accept ourselves. And then when we do that, the help that we can give to the world is so much more intense and greater than we could ever imagine when we are coming from our heart and loving ourselves. Then we can actually give that help that we really want to give without depleting ourselves. We find that balance.
Before we continue on with today's episode, for those of you interested in getting more fantastic fungi in your life, I want to take a quick moment to tell you about a friend of mine's brand new company, The Great Mother. Recently, I have been drinking The Great Mother's superfood mushroom coffee alternative called Ritual, as well as regularly taking their awesome Ally microdoses, and I am truly loving both. As you probably know, these days, many of the world's highest achievers and performers swear by microdosing. The problem is it can still be difficult to get a hold of magic mushrooms. That's why when my friend reached out, who lives in an area and country where legalization is not a problem like it was in the past, and said he'd be willing to offer microdoses to my listeners, I wanted to pass the word along. Ally microdoses are 100% organic. And in addition to a small amount of the magic active ingredient, they also contain functional mushrooms like lion's mane, cordyceps, chaga, and other brain boosters like bacopa. Ally is essentially a full spectrum nootropic. And of course, the coffee alternative Ritual doesn't contain magic mushrooms, but it has an array of the best organic functional mushrooms in the world. And, with functional mushrooms, it's really important to get them from the highest integrity sources. And whereas some other highly popular mushroom coffee alternatives on the market only contain a few varieties of functional mushrooms in their actual ingredients, Ritual has 7. Not only does it contain more types, it also contains 3 to 4 times the amount that the big brands have in each serving. And it tastes amazing. I actually like to have it on its own, as well as mixing it into my coffee sometimes as well. However, since this is definitely a unique offering, there are a few steps. First, just reach out and request to follow the private page, thegreat.mother on Instagram. Once you've been accepted to follow, just message what you're interested in getting and someone will get back to you.
Another thing that's incredibly important on this self-love journey is allowing yourself to cry. How many of us stuff our cries because we don't want to cry? I know sometimes I stuff my cries because I don't want my eyes to look all puffy, especially if I have to go to work or do something that day. I don't want to look like I've just been crying. And you can't do it because, well, we can. And when we do, we're just stuffing down that emotion. We're impeding flow, the energetic and emotional flow that wants to come out and be released from us. And we are also closing off our heart. So in the act of crying, in letting those tears flow, we are opening our heart. And we all know that once we've had a really good cry, once we cry it out, it feels so much better. What really doesn't feel good is when we stuff it in and it stays in there and it just festers and then it just gets stinky and old and just grosser and grosser and turns into an incredibly difficult thing to deal with. And that's what we call disease. So cry. Allow yourself to cry whenever you need to cry. Open that heart in that way. Allow the flow. We all got to surrender to this flow. It's a whole lot easier, actually. We spend our human lives trying to control our lives. Really, we have no control. And it's so much easier if we just surrender to the plan that our spirit has for us, follow our heart, follow those breadcrumbs, knowing that it is all working out for us all the time. It's so much easier. We don't have control over any of it. Another way we can love ourselves is to listen to our body. I mentioned a couple times there that when we stuff these emotions, we feel symptoms, we feel dis-ease. Our body is blocked. It's not flowing. It doesn't have the circulation, the breath that it needs because we're not allowing the energetic flow. So our body's going to tell us. It's always going to tell us, hey, something's off here. You're not dealing with this emotion. Here's where you stuffed it. And you stuffed it here because this body part has a message for you. So what does that body part then say to you? You can talk to your body. Ask it. Hey, wrist, what are you saying to me? This experience that I'm having that is not so cool. I'm not really loving it. What are you trying to say to me? And your wrist will talk back. And maybe it says, you're holding on a little too tight. You need to be a little bit more flexible there. Maybe you need to release that grip. Who knows? That's going to be different for everyone. The different body part is going to be a different message for whatever that very first thing that comes to your mind. So when you talk to your body and say, hey, what are you trying to tell me? That very first thought that comes is the answer. Trust that answer and then go deeper. Listen to your body. Your body is a messenger, and that's all it is. Well, it's a physical vehicle for your spirit to be here and have this experience, of course. And this physical vehicle is functioning as a messenger so that you can have yet another way to understand your lessons and yourself so your spirit can grow. We are all here on this incredible journey, and there is not one single person who is special in this, does it differently. Like, everyone has confidence issues. Everyone has places where they can love themselves more, but we don't think that. We think that some people are perfect or that we need to be perfect because there's this ideal of perfection, and it's total BS because it just doesn't exist. And if it did, wouldn't that be kind of weird? Wouldn't you think there was something off there? We are perfectly imperfect all the time, even when our body is screaming at us. It's doing this because it's a perfect machine and it knows exactly what to do to give us this message. And when we get the message, it knows exactly what to do to keep us well. One of the biggest ways also that we can love ourselves is to just take time for ourselves in whatever way that means. Sometimes it means alone time. It means just being alone and being in a quiet space and having that time for meditation, getting out and going on a hike and being in nature. Maybe it means dancing or drawing or painting or singing. Whatever makes your heart happy. Time for yourself. And oftentimes we don't do that. We make time for everybody else but ourselves. Out of balance again. We got to find that balance between being the helper that we came here to be in service to the one, in service to others, and also realizing that we are part of that one and that includes us too. And that if we really want to serve the one and the all, that we got to include ourselves. And if we're not, we're separating ourselves and it's not actual unity then, is it? So recognizing our own selves as part of the oneness, part of the unity that we're here to help is a very, very big perspective change that helps quite a bit in balancing this idea of helping ourselves and then being able to help others, putting our own air mask on first. That way we can breathe, we have that flow, and then we can show others how to do the same. Now, lastly, and certainly not least, and probably the most important out of all of these acts of self-love, forgiveness. Not only forgiving the other for whatever the circumstance, whatever has happened, because that person is just a player, a volunteer, someone that you agreed to have this experience with actually on the soul level. The forgiveness is for yourself. Sometimes it's a whole lot easier to forgive that other person than it is to forgive ourselves. And when we're in that place, we're thinking, well, I know this now. How could I have possibly done that? That was so stupid of me. I can't believe I did that. That was so wrong. And I knew it and I did it anyway. And the thing is, yeah, in hindsight, now knowing what we know, we wish we could have done it differently, but we didn't. And that's okay because we've moved on. And there is no point in holding on to that energy because it only makes us sicker. We're not helping anybody by beating ourselves up. We're not making it better. We're not making up for it. All we're doing is making it worse on ourselves. So the biggest act of self-love that we could ever do is learn to forgive ourselves, knowing that we are not perfect creatures. And in forgiveness is what stops this wheel of karma. It's how we actually break this generational trauma. It's how we create something new. We forgive. We forgive ourselves. We forgive ourselves because we didn't know any better. Jesus said in the Bible, "Forgive them, for they do not know what they do." And so when we make these mistakes, when we make these choices, when we have these experiences, they're not actually ever a mistake. It's an experience that we are learning from. And if we didn't have the experience, then what really would we learn? If we didn't have the experience of knowing better and doing it anyway, then how would we know then next time what it feels like to know and then to actually do it and how much better that feels and what a lesson we can learn in trusting ourselves and our own intuition in that process. We are not perfect beings. We are learning and changing and growing all of the time. Each and every day, in each present moment, we are somebody new. That past is back there. So in this moment, we can say, I love me now. I am sorry for all of those things that happened, that I've experienced, that maybe I've experienced with others, and I forgive you. Please forgive me. Thank you. Thank you for all of these experiences because they've made me who I am. And through these experiences, we grow and we learn to love more. And the more we learn to love more, the more love we have to give and the more help we have to give. The more we all shine brighter and live these passionate, joyful lives that we actually came here to live. I think that's going to be it for me today, everyone. I love you all so much. I'm leaving you with a song by Ayla Nerio today called Little Garden. Until next time, love you all.
Breathe, everything's changing. Breathe, you are a leader in these times. Breathe, and all the ones around you, you remind them to breathe. Breathe, the spell's been broken. We've been running far too fast, too long. See, all life is calling out for a moment. Listen to your heart, grow a little garden, feed the ones around you with your love. Listen to your heart, know that we are with you, be the shining forest that you are. Don't let the fear take you away. There's too much at stake. This is the path for which you were born. These are the times for which you were made. Don't let the fear take you away. There's too much at stake. This is the path for which you were born. These are the times for which you were made. Don't let the fear take you away. There's too much at stake. This is the path for which you were born. So lay your body to the earth. Lay your mind down for a while. Find the space between. Breathe, your skies are clearing. Breathe, the trees are singing to your lungs. Breathe, and all the ones around you, you remind them to breathe. Listen to your heart, grow a little garden, feed the ones around you with your love. Listen to your heart, know that we are with you, be the shining forest that we are. And breathe. Listen to your heart. We are the shining forest. Grow a little garden. Feed the ones around you with your love. Listen to